My name is James Pepper. I'm the chair of the Cannabis Control Board. Today is December 18th, 2024, and I call this meeting to order. Just want to note that Kyle, our other board member, is still out on paternity leave. I think he should be back for the January meeting, though. Also wanted to acknowledge the news from Ceres that they're going to be winding down their operations in Vermont following the bankruptcy of their parent company. This wind down includes their medical dispensary in Brattleboro, which closed last week, and will likely include their locations in Burlington, Milton, and their other medical dispensary location in South Burlington. We don't have a precise timeline from them, but our team is overseeing the orderly closure of these facilities. I'd like to take a moment to apologize to the patients that are going to be impacted by this situation. For what it's worth, Grassroots, one of our integrated licenses, is on the list for approval today for a new dispensary in Winooski. And I've also been in touch with the Vermont Patients Alliance, who has indicated a strong interest in being part of the solution for patients here. I would just also note that many of our adult use retailers offer registered patients a 20% discount on their products. So if you are a registered patient, don't be shy about asking for that. And then just more broadly, we have drafted our rules about the medical use endorsement, and they're on track. We are on track to be able to issue those once they're authorized in July. But in the meantime, if any patients listening have questions about access to medical products, please email the board at ccb.med@vermont.gov, ccb.med@vermont.gov. I know there's a lot of media interest in a lawsuit that was filed last week challenging the legality of the cannabis advertising laws. I'm not making any news here today about it, other than to say that the case has been assigned to an assistant attorney general at the in the civil division of the attorney general's office. And if I'm not mistaken, it's been set for a hearing in January. More importantly, all four of our draft rules have been approved by ICAR, the Interagency Committee on Administrative Rules, which is the very first step in the rulemaking process. We do intend to file those with the Secretary of State's office this Friday. Once that's done, we'll post them to our website and set a time and a date for a public hearing. In addition to some of the bigger ticket items like the medical use endorsement and retail citing and tier expansion and relegation, you'll also see in those rules some relaxing of some regulations and then some tightening in other areas. I really encourage everyone over the break to take some time with them once they've been published and to prepare comments for us, not just about the things you dislike, but it's also helpful to hear about changes that you like or changes that you like but may need some tweaking. This is the time to ask for changes, because once the rules are adopted, we're stuck with them for the indefinite future. I always appreciate when people are specific in their comments and hopefully come with some solutions to things that you don't like. With that, just need to approve the minutes from our last meeting on November 20th and our evidentiary hearing on December 11th. Julie, have you had a chance to look through those?
I have, and I would move to approve with two changes.
Great.
So first, on the November 20th minutes, that I left executive session at approximately 2:10 and returned at the end of executive session. And on the 12:11 minutes, that I left at 1:11 when executive session started, and that I returned at 1:25.
Can we just note that during those timeframes was when Kyle and I were discussing Cannabis,
Yep.
which you recused yourself from?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, with that amendment, I'll second the motion. Those amendments. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great. All right. Moving down the agenda, public comment. We'll handle this the same way you always do. If you join via the video link, please raise your virtual hand if you'd like to comment. And then we'll move to people that join via the phone after that. And I see Dave Silverman is up first.
Thank you, Chair. I want to talk about the medical endorsements. The sudden closure of Ceres leaves patients both in the metro area of Burlington, but also in southern Vermont, really stranded without good coverage. And I think this is one of those areas where the board and the industry are really pulling in the same direction, where we just want to see patients have access. And I think that this closure really creates an emergency for those patients who are no longer really getting served. I don't think that, despite the best efforts of the two remaining incumbent medical dispensaries, that folks in southern Vermont are going to be able to get served, even with delivery options or things like that. And look, this is not a moneymaker for the rec dispensaries. This is really us trying to provide a service to people in need. And so, given that this all happened very suddenly, and that the legislature did not anticipate such a sudden and dramatic reduction in access prior to next summer, I think that you have an opportunity here to use your emergency rulemaking power to advance that timeline and get those endorsements going much faster. Within 1 or 2 months rather than 7 or 8. And so I would encourage you to think about that and act more quickly. Appreciating that the rules are drafted, and there will be a public comment period on those. I don't think any of that precludes the ability to, in parallel, use your emergency rulemaking power. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dave. Anyone else for public comment, please just raise your virtual hand. And if you joined via phone and would like to comment, you can hit *6 to unmute. Great. I'll close the public comment window. Just in brief response to Dave, all options are on the table. We have to evaluate the kind of legality of using an emergency rule for this situation before we would consider what that might look like. In the meantime, I would just continue to urge patients that are having access issues to be in touch with the board, and we can try and work with the existing dispensaries to see what solutions are out there. Okay, next on the agenda is the executive director report. You ready for that, Olga?
We'll find out. Technology. Let's see this one.
So,
Now let me just see.
all right.
That worked. Okay, good. All right. So as always, our report is going to offer you some adult use program licensing data first. All of the data is current as of December 16th of this year, unless noted otherwise, on the individual slides. All right. So as what we usually do first is we take a quick look at our current active licensees. This is a snapshot of all active licenses going back 3 months. Again, we are using 3 months worth of data to track any trends. At this time, we are up to 601 active licenses. In November, we had 583, so we are showing a gain of 18 November through December. As you could probably tell, the primary gains are in our cultivators. So we've gained 7. And our retailers, we've gained 8. We've also gained 3 additional manufacturers. And the December data is in dark blue color. So you can see those numbers highlighted. So that's the quick splash in numbers for the month. And now I'll have a few priority status slides for you. First, a quick summary of all of the active licenses through the lens of their priority status, as usual. Again, as usual, numbers are pretty steady months over months, with about 60% of our licensed community falling into the standard priority status, as shown in orange. And our economic empowerment and social equity groups are at around 40% combined. Pretty steady in terms of numbers months over months. And I do have a few more slides here. Again, so this is basically the same data, except we are looking now at 3 months worth of data. The last column is December data. Again, you could see back to October how the numbers have been changing. Reasonably stable. We've seen a substantial gain at our economic empowerment group when compared to the prior months. Okay, moving on, so here we'll take a closer look at just our cultivators. And we are seeing pretty stable numbers across all priority status categories. Again, we are looking at October, November, and December data just at our cultivators. Percentage-wise, if we were to take a closer look, we are at around 61% for our standard group, 17% for social equity, and 23-ish for economic empowerment. Again, the numbers track closely with the general, with an overall trends that we see. Similarly, here is our manufacturers. Again, we're looking at the months over months trends, which are pretty, nothing significant here. We are reporting a gain of 3 social equity manufacturers from November to December. That maybe is worth noting here.
Great.
Mm-hmm. And finally, retailers. The last few months, we've all seen a jump in the number of our retail licenses. We went from 84 in October to 102 in December. So 18 new retailers joined in the fun. Most of the recent additions have fallen into the standard priority status category. As you could probably see, 49 to 58 October through December. Overall, if you look at the percentages, though, the standard retail community is at about 57%, and social equity and economic empowerment are about 43% combined. So, again, tracking pretty closely with the overall numbers.
Could we, in a future meeting, know a little bit more about social equity and economic, well, all of them actually, but I'm thinking of social equity in particular, how many of those people have integrated, like have purchased more than one kind of license?
Okay, so multiple licenses.
Right.
Okay, yeah, we can most certainly find that information. Yeah. Best. Okay, so that's it. That's what we got for the priority status. And back to our standard slides. We'll take a closer look at the cultivator licenses data. 3 months worth of data again. December data is blue. A couple noticeable increases are just in tier 1 and tier 2 indoor. We continue to see an upward trend in those numbers. The rest of the categories either have not changed or show only minor changes. Again, The only changes here are in our indoor tier 1 and 2 that are noticeable. Okay. And if we are good, I'll quickly jump and we can look at our manufacturer licenses. Again, 3 months worth of data. December data is in the last block here. We are up to 91 manufacturers, up from 88, so we gained 3. Months over months, we got a new tier 1 and a couple tier 2 manufacturers as far as the most specific breakdowns.
Great. Yeah,
Good.
thank you.
Okay. Taking a closer look at the licensed canopy capacity square footage here, as we are probably accustomed, indoor canopy is in the light green color and outdoor is the darker color. The total amount of canopy is now 939,000, and all of the gains have been in the indoor square footage. So again, nothing significant here in terms of trends. Okay, so that is a wrap on this, and now we'll take a closer look at the retail locations and the areas of density. I have 2 slides here that would show the entire retail landscape. So here, again, an overview of all licensed retailers, as well as retail applications that we have. In total, again, 102 licensed retail stores, plus 3 additional integrated. They're separated in a second column. You're also seeing here columns for retail applications that have been approved by the board previously, but licenses have not yet been issued. So those folks are working through the contingencies, or there is an outstanding payment. We have 6 of those as of this board meeting. Then there is a column for pending board approval. Those are the applications that we have on the agenda for the board today, and we have just 1 of those. It's on the second slide. And then we have a final column that shows the applications that are still incomplete, and those are the ones in the queue. So again, they are moving through, but they're not ready for the board yet. So here's slide 1 with that information. And jump to the second slide here.
Great. And those 2 in the queue, we'll take action on one way or the other in January.
Yes, those are the ones that will come up in January. Yeah, those are the folks who have been given some additional time to address some deficiencies. Okay. All right. Next, so that's what we got for sort of licensing data, and we are moving on to take a quick look at the product registration data. Just a quick update, sort of we try doing this quarterly. Let's take a look here. So I have 4 slides on product registrations. It's an overview of various registered product types, and you're looking at new product submissions versus renewals. Again, snapshot in time as of December 16th. New registrations are in yellow and renewals are in green. And here you're looking at the data for seeds, clones, and topicals. Again, that's a snapshot of all active registrations as of the 16th for the steps. Next, on the second slide, you're looking at the concentrates, edibles, and vape cartridges, and the numbers for these categories of products. Next slide. Again, you're looking at infused pre-rolled flower and tinctures. One more. This has our flower and pre-rolls. Again, snapshot in time. showing original and renewed registrations as of the 16th.
Great. Yep.
Moving on.
Yeah.
Okay, now our compliance data showing the important work that our team does in the field. First, it's our summary of the agency's compliance inspections and investigations for the last month through the 16th. We are reporting 66 inspections and 12 active investigations. You could see that the majority of site visits focused on the cultivation sites and on retailers. You have seen it. And then some in manufacturing as well. 8 new investigations came in, were started this month, and our team continues to work on 4 open investigations from prior months. So we are showing 12 active investigations for the team. Okay, now we'll just look at the inspections, and here we're looking at the last 3 months. So we are showing 31 cultivation site inspections this month. Again, dark blue is what you're looking at here. And then 24 retail inspections and 10 manufacturing. 1 wholesaler saw a visit from our team as well. Okay, and now a closer look at the investigations. As I mentioned, 8 new investigations were assigned. Again, you're looking at the blue color. And as I said, 4 additional investigations are on this list that I included from the prior months. Majority of our investigations are with our retail community currently. Okay. Next is a quick look at the documented complaints that were received in the last months. So again, this chart gives you an insight into specific actions of our compliance team. You're looking at the blue color for the December data. And we got 22 recorded complaints, 5 formal letters of warning that were issued, 6 notices of violations served, 4 witness destructions of product, and 7 cessations of operation documented. And just a closer look at the specific reasons for the warning letters that our compliance team processed last month. So you could take a closer look here. What different categories of violations were addressed.
The letters of warning is kind of a step down from a notice of violation.
Yes, it's up to our compliance and enforcement team to assess the severity of the complaint and in the investigation guides what type of enforcement action. But yes, again, it's another reminder to folks to address those in real time so that they do not rise to the level of a formal notice of a violation, which would be the next step. Yep. And if we look at the notices of violations, more specifically, here's a breakdown of the reasons behind the notices of violations that were served last month. As we have lapse of insurance has been the main reason for those.
What's an inspection violation? Is it just something that comes up in inspection, or they weren't available for the inspection?
Yeah, it's usually security concerns or some type of operational challenges uncovered during the inspection.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, that's a wrap for our compliance and enforcement data. And now we'll take a quick look at the medical data for the last months. And we're not seeing any new trends here. The numbers continue to trend down, both in terms of our patients and caregivers.
698.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
All right. That is it for the data And now we are on to the staff recommendations for licensure.
Great.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ready? Dive in? Okay. All right. So first here are staff recommendations for initial licensure. 5 applicants presented to you. I just want to flag an unusual circumstance with AMT. That's the last on the list here. This retail applicant had completed all of their requirements for licensure well before the application window closed for retail. However, the board could not act on the complete application because voters of the town of Sharon had not opted in to retail at that time. So the voters of the town of Sharon just did that on December 9. And so our licensing team is pleased to clear AMT full licensure.
Great.
All right. I'm
Any
not sure.
concerns about that?
Okay. Are you gonna just vote on this independently, or we just go through renewals as well?
I think we can probably go through renewals and do
Sure.
one motion,
Okay.
right?
Great.
We don't have anything to pull aside and have a,
No, I don't believe so. I think everything is, yeah, we have some late renewals. All right, so then we'll jump into the conventional license renewals, and I have 2 slides here. That is the first.
Are we getting all of that there? Is there one more below Vermont Kinds? No.
Let's see if I've
No,
not seen
I
it
don't think
here, so
Okay.
should hopefully we'll double check.
Okay. And just for the sake of the people on the phone, this list will be posted to our website by the end of the day.
Okay, we'll go to the second slide, and yes, we'll come back. So just one note here, also one quick special circumstance regarding the last renewing licensee on this list. I'm referring to Cambridge Cannabis Company. So this licensee is on the list to renew without one non-participating principal whose identification card will be inactivated pending the provision of required information from the business. Okay, and we just confirmed that, yes, indeed, Vermont Kind was the last line
yeah, okay.
on that slide. Yep. All right, so, all right, off we go. So that's what we got for the regular renewals. And so now here's a list of the late renewal applications for the board to review. We got 5, looks like it. Under the rule 115.1D, all of these businesses have supplied all of their required documentation, and they have also provided letters explaining their late filings. Staff recommends that the board accept and approve these late renewals.
Okay.
So the next slide is late renewals and continuation. Do we want to keep going for those, or feel like there would be a separate motion for?
yeah, so for
those?
this, I would just move to accept the staff recommendation. So if something's different's gonna happen on the next slide,
On the
then
next
we'd
slide.
probably just.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Let's,
So did you make that? Did you? move to
I'll
accept?
say the whole thing. I move that the board adopt staff recommendations to approve the applications listed, issuance subject to final payment, required fees, and any other contingencies.
My second. Favor?
Aye.
Aye.
good. And now we are looking at the establishments that have filed explanations for untimely filing under Rule 115.1DI, with the elements required for renewal still missing. The application materials and explanations have been shared with the board. But since some of the renewal elements are missing, the board cannot approve these renewal applications at this meeting. The board has discretion to accept the incomplete applications and continue the existing licenses for a short period to allow the renewal process to be completed. And our staff recommend that the board accept these late filings and continue the existing licenses in full force until the board's next meeting on January 29.
Okay. Is there a motion to accept the late application filings and renew till the next meeting?
I move to accept and continue these applications to allow the renewal process to be completed.
I second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
There's one more slide that I have for you.
Okay.
Okay, this one finally. So what you're looking at here, the board is being asked to approve two parallel applications under Rule 117. So first you're looking at, so FWR Incorporated holds an integrated license and wishes to operate a new retail location in Winooski. As you know, each integrated licensee is permitted one retail location, and FWR does not presently operate one. And second, FWR Incorporated holds a dispensary license and wishes to add an operating medical dispensary site co-located with the Winooski retail site. If the board approves both location change applications under Rule 117, FWR will be authorized to offer adult use and medical sales at the new location in Winooski, which, as we discussed a little earlier, might be good news for registered patients concerned with dispensary access after Series dispensary upcoming departures from the area.
Great. I mean, we anticipated that in our rules. It's all about board. Yeah, great. Okay. Is there a motion to approve this?
I move to approve these applications. Issuance subject to any final payment or required fees or other contingencies.
I second. Any discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. That's it for the report.
All right. Thank you, Olga. Thank you, everyone. Last thing on our agenda is a waiver request that seems like we probably want to have a little bit of discussion about, just given that, you know, it implicates a rule and would require a waiver to that rule. And I think it's probably best we're all on the same page as to that before we take any action on it. So, Gabe, do you mind just giving us a little bit of background? Is that okay?
Yeah, I'd be happy to.
Great.
So you have two requests for rule waivers that are basically the same in substance. As you know, your administrative rules prohibit both all-in-one disposable vapes and plastic packaging. The prohibition on disposable vapes is 263B6. The prohibition on plastic packaging is 229B. From time to time, we get waiver requests to waive the packaging prohibition, and generally those have been granted only in cases where it's necessary to use plastic to achieve child resistance, for example. In this case, you have a couple manufacturers writing saying that there's sort of an exciting new device. I think EcoStar is the name of the brand name of one of them. There may be other similar ones. They're made of PLA plastic that is, at least in theory, industrially compostable, and that have removable lithium-ion batteries that can be reclaimed and recycled instead of being thrown out with the plastic shell. So both of those, so you have these two requests to make this possible. And the requests, I think, acknowledge that this would require waiving both of the rules that I mentioned. So there's a lot of discretionary room to move. You actually have a rule on waivers, 2.16, And it talks about, waiver being appropriate if it's necessary to achieve a purpose of Vermont law and it doesn't create a danger to the public health, safety, or welfare. The second of those seems like not a big issue. Necessity to promote a purpose of the law. I think one of the things the General Assembly wanted was a healthy and thriving and competitive cannabis market. And there are policy reasons to experiment with things that might tend to crowd out black market products. It doesn't serve anybody well if the disposal of vapes proliferate on the black market because our licensees can't sell regulated ones. There's also some reason to think this might be an opportune time to experiment with this because you're about to introduce your rules. And, the simple fix, if you want a rule changed, is to pursue or to argue for the amendment of that rule during the rulemaking process. So you have a lot of room to move here. On one end, you could take no action and just say, we're about to go into rulemaking in a couple of months, so we're going to have pretty open discussions of this beginning in January. Let's just hash out what should happen with those rules then. At the other extreme, you could, if you agree with the reasoning, you could grant waivers right now and just let it flow. And that would mean across the board, as long as you had a PLA plastic and a reclaimable battery, you'd be okay. And then I had suggested to you, and the staff and I had kind of put together a kind of middle way that you could consider, which is running a kind of pilot program that would allow limited waivers while you're in rulemaking, and you could use data collected during the pilot program to inform your decision about what you want your ultimate rules to be when you come to, when you have to kind of make a final decision in March or April. So that's sort of the range of options. And if you have any questions, happy to answer those. But I just wanted to put that out before you because we've got this group of waiver requests coming together.
So one of the options is potentially to grant waivers with some exclusivity to them. Do the waivers that we've granted in the past, have those been exclusive to certain businesses? Or generally my recollection of the packaging waivers is if this item is approved, anyone can use that item. It's not exclusive to a particular licensee. Okay.
That's right. They called those categorical waivers,
Right.
And generally somebody would identify a child-safe bag and the committee would look at it and say, okay, anybody in industry can use that if it's used to achieve child assistance.
And then one of the other options is to allow like to have a categorical waiver, which would allow any licensee to do that. So I'm looking at you in terms of what that means for staff workflow over the next, couple of months.
And I would just add a layer to that, which is it'd be a categorical waiver. I'd want to avoid calling out ecos like one
Right.
product. It'd be a categorical waiver for a single use vaping device that meets certain characteristics.
Right, which means our staff is going to have to review all of those
Right.
details
Yes.
for everyone
Right.
who submits
Yes.
a waiver for any similar product.
Yeah, so I think what we want to ask for is a submission of a specific plan. So we're not just looking for a waiver. We are looking for somebody to come in with the business plan for not just the product, but for how they're going to manage the recycling of the batteries, the recycling of the plastic, which we will have to develop a separate process. And I do think we need to set some restrictions and parameters around how many of the different products and types should be allowed as a part of this pilot project.
To piggyback on that, I think the thing we want to make sure we do is collect data.
Yeah.
The big unknown is the manufacturers of the products say, well, consumers will return them if you incentivize them with a deposit or something, and broad speculation about what actual consumer behavior would be, what rate would come back, and
Right.
what ratio of all the posting. So to Olga's point, it might make a lot of sense to ask that people submit plans and that those plans focus on data collection, how you're going to collect the data, because otherwise if we just let it run through our fingers, it's kind of like, might as well just
Right.
skip that pilot
Right.
program part,
And we anticipate our rules will be filed at the end of this week or something like that, right?
They'll be submitted to the Secretary of State, who will then post them right around Christmas Day. I don't know if they do it on Christmas Day, but they'll go in papers around the 26th.
Right. So theoretically, like we'd be taking public comment on those rules sometime very early in the new year, right?
Yes, you'd be taking public comment on the rules through in January.
Yeah.
So people would have all of January to share their thoughts on what they'd like to see.
It's a shame Kyle's not here for this because I have kind of just deferred to him on a lot of these types of issues. I can speak to what my intention when we created this regulation that we're trying to waive, that we may waive now, which is around single use all-in-one devices, which was to reduce consumer waste going into the landfill, especially consumer waste that includes a battery that's not easily removable. And then second was to avoid some of those really poorly made disposables with cheap components that we're now seeing are prone to leaching heavy metals into the kind of vapor, the vaping devices. You know, I've actually come around to the idea over the last 2 years or however long it's been since we did this, that our market may benefit from having a single use all-in-one device, so long as it meets those first two criteria, those kind of underlying criteria for me. I mean, we have a lot of tourism driving sales, and those folks are very likely going to throw away whatever vaping device they buy no matter what. And so wouldn't it be better if they, at least there's a opportunity to have those be composted potentially and have the battery removed? As Kyle likes to say from time to time, is this environmental stewardship involves trade-offs. So I'm actually kind of more in line with accepting the middle path that was laid out, where we have a pilot program where we do collect data to help inform our rulemaking process. We don't always have that opportunity, where the timing is pretty opportune to do that right now. But I also don't know what sort of floodgates we're going to open with respect to the types of products that are out there that are single-use battery, easily removable batteries, and what sort of components those products are going to have, and how recyclable or compostable they are. And frankly, I'm not fully convinced on the compostability of PLA, but I think it's the best option that we have other than PHA right now. Gabe, what are your thoughts on a pilot? I know you kind of laid out some potential parameters in a memo to us. Do we need to hammer those out right now, or do we need to kind of think about what we want this pilot to look like, and then just kind of like, do we need to vote on it essentially?
I think you certainly want to vote on whether to authorize staff to allow limited waivers according to approved plans.
Okay.
If you could, you can get as deep into the weeds or not as you want, but
Okay.
I think a good middle way, because we have some people on staff who are more expert in product development and the product characteristics, would be to give them your big picture goals.
Okay.
Collect the data, make sure it doesn't leach heavy metals. There's a basic quality control. Goals like that, if you just articulate those in the record and then delegate to them, trying a pilot program and authorize them to waive manufacturers who have a plan that makes sense to achieve those goals.
Okay.
I think you could do it that way.
Okay. Well, let me just talk through some of the parameters of the plan you laid out, see how we feel about them. One is to kind of delay the onset of this waiver period. And I think that's the rationale there is kind of we had, I think, 1 or 2 companies submit the waiver, and to give everyone a fair opportunity to participate at the same time, have a slightly delayed onset. So it's not just we vote to waive today and then we start letting people sell them today. I think there's so I like that.
Yeah.
Just out of fairness to all market participants. A limit on the length of the pilot. I think we want the data in time to actually do something with our rules. I think, the proposal has a 3-month limit on this pilot program. I think that may actually have an inadvertent chilling effect on people actually participating. If they like, I don't know how many units you can get through in 3 months, but it seems like if you're ordering a bulk unit of these things or bulk purchase of these things, 3 months may not be enough time to get through all your
Right.
inventory.
Although, not to interrupt, but we're talking about the tourist time that we would expect people to be purchasing these, right?
Yeah.
This would be the highest tourist time, one of the
That's
highest
true.
tourist times in Vermont
Right.
is January to March.
Right. That is true. I was thinking extending that just a bit to 6 months, but having a 3-month check back, like a interim report to the
Mhm.
board on all data at a 3-month period or whenever it's reasonable to get our rules amended if we decide that this is actually a benefit.
We actually discussed sort of a mandatory 30-day report
Okay.
because we're likely gonna start having our open meetings with participants in February.
Okay.
So it might be good to have that data, first months of data that could be
Okay.
really helpful for those conversations.
Okay.
And obviously,
So like a preliminary report after 30 days and then maybe
Yeah.
60 and
Mhm.
90 days or something like that.
and I think we could also include something that as requested by CCB, because we may want that data ongoingly.
Right. Yeah.
And that data should be collected and kept. So it seems like we should give our staff some flexibility
Yeah.
to request that data.
Mhm.
But I'd say first 30 days, would be helpful to
Yeah.
us all.
I mean, I'm comfortable with a pilot program so long as it's open to anyone who would like
Right.
to participate in it.
Yeah. And then PLA, I mean, removable battery is a must for me. That's the kind of thing to me that counteracts the single use disposables that, as long as the battery is easily removable,
Mhm.
that's where the benefit is to me. I like PLA. We don't have any way to compost PLA in the state that I'm aware of.
The most detailed proposal you had involved a commercial entity collecting and then grinding, I think.
Okay. Okay.
Mhm.
So a requirement that they be some kind of deposit and take back, and data collection on that. Can we talk about the proposal that you presented to us about that the battery has to be sold separately from the device?
There was a lot of interest in making sure that there's an incentive to bring back both the battery and the shell.
Yeah.
And so I think when staff were thinking this through, they felt it would be appropriate to make sure there was an independent deposit for each part.
Okay.
So that's the idea that, we wouldn't want a situation where the battery is nominally removable, but nobody does that, So
Yeah.
So just to be clear to folks who are listening, this means that when you purchase one of these devices, you would have an additional charge, just like when you purchase something in an aluminum can,
Mhm.
and you would get that back when you return it.
yes.
Okay.
And although it sounds a little burdensome, I mean, the flip side of this is there's kind of a customer loyalty element
Right.
to it. If you have somebody who's chosen to go to your place and get it from you, they have an
Mhm.
incentive to return there.
Yeah.
Do we know the practicality of selling the battery separately, at least in the EcoStar context?
It's part of the experiment. I don't really know.
Okay.
Um,
So I feel like maybe you could have the kind of two different deposits, but just not sell them separately. So, so you get the benefit of I just don't know if you have to open the consumer packaging, remove the battery, put it back in the packaging, and then kind of reattach the like tamper resistant steel.
Neither do we. I mean, I guess the sort of tactical answer is don't over legislate it. You could just delegate
Right.
to staff, and you just say to staff, we want you to come up with only accept plans that have a rational deposit system that gives
Yes.
people an incentive to bring back both pieces. And
Yes.
You figure it out based
Okay.
on how it works.
Right. We know what's available through this one company, but we haven't really explored
Exactly.
what else is there. That what you're talking about might be available somewhere.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think yes, to your point, just give authorized staff to kind of determine the kind of a rational plan to make sure that there's an incentive to bring both components back, the shell and the battery. The sale must be accompanied by a flyer describing the pilot program. That's actually part of the battery stewardship program currently, and it's in law that kind of just explains it, the rationale for this, and then if you bring it back, kind of.
Yeah.
So I don't have a problem with that.
In our statute, no.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Not cannabis statutes.
Right.
In just the battery stewardship program. It's a separate law.
Okay.
But this will also include the hardware, bring back the hardware part.
Yeah.
So
The reporting requirement, of course. And then, so I think it just comes down to, do we want to require PLA or another compostable product with a plan to actually compost the things that are coming back?
This is something I typically rely on, Kyle.
I know, yeah.
I don't. I
think
know enough to ask the questions, but not to have an opinion.
Kyle has explained this to me quite frequently, but he's
Yeah.
also explained to me that there's a lot of greenwashing that happens.
Yeah,
in
exactly.
this. So, but he has very explicitly kind of gone into differences between PLA, DHA, and some of the other bioplastics. PLA is compostable under industrial settings. You're shooting nitrogen into it or something. And we don't have any of those plants here. And it's my understanding, at least for the EcoStar, that the cartridge is not you can't separate the cartridge from the shell itself, the PLA shell. So if we're going to be collecting these things and trying to send them to an industrial composter, it's inevitably going to have to cross state lines. I wonder if that causes any problems. It's probably considered hemp. It's probably on a dry weight basis less than 0.3% THC.
I guess.
But I don't know. I guess I mean I would feel more comfortable having. I think we'll get less of the kind of cheaper devices coming in if we require PLA. But then we're pretty much narrow casting to EcoStar.
Well, I mean, I guess in some ways you don't, when you experiment like this, you want some variables, but you don't want everything to be a variable. So that might be all right.
Okay.
For a short period of time.
Okay. So the criteria is limited pilot for no more than 6 months. Have some delay on the onset. The recommendation here is January 15th. That's fine with me. Have a 30-day check back. Well, have data collect. Have a deposit on both components of the battery and the vaping device itself. Have a mandatory take back program that we're tracking data on how successful those take backs are, and that the device be PLA and have an easily removable battery.
you want the limit on a number of units? And
I just don't know the answer to that. I don't know what makes the most sense for, like, I don't want, if we want this experiment to run, I don't want to make it so, I don't want to have so many disincentives that no one's ever going to actually run the experiment. I don't know what a reasonable number would be of units. I don't know when you order them in bulk. I just don't know. I mean, maybe can we leave that up to be decided if we're going to have a limitation on just the total number of units that we're going to allow?
It's time limited though, so doesn't that kind of limit the units anyway? Like if somebody knows that they're only going to purchase this through March or whatever the period of time we're doing this is, that'll limit the number of units.
so I guess we just have to be very clear that folks are aware not to over invest
Right.
prematurely.
Right. Did you say, I'm sorry, in what you were just outlining, the end of this pilot program? We should probably clearly outline that now.
I think I'm okay with 6 months. The proposal here was 3. I just, for the same rationale, I don't know if if the minimum order to make this viable is 10,000 units or something, I don't know if
Yeah.
people will be able to get through those in 3 months. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't either. I mean, from a data collection perspective, it's sort of like, don't have a limit, more data points or more data, right? The one thing I did want to say kind of loudly is that somebody choosing to make an investment in these products in anticipation of a yet to be achieved rule amendment is taking a business chance, and should understand that it is possible. In fact, it's not permissible for the board to promise an outcome of rulemaking before we've done the public process. And so if you buy the stuff, you are taking a business risk that it may not be usable in the way you hope. Hopefully you could sell it to somebody else in the industry. I'm not sure it would be a total waste, but it's not a sure thing.
Right. Yeah. And hopefully, yeah, I mean, I want to be driven by the data on this. Like, how successful are we, getting these batteries returned and not having these same batteries end up in the landfill? Like, that's the thing.
Will the data collection though, if we do this for 6 months, that delay our rules? Because this is kind of happening
Yeah.
we'll maybe half collected the data and it's in time for our rules to be finalized.
Depends what you think of people's behavior. The proponent of the most detailed plan asserted that most users use these within 2 weeks. That's a pretty aggressive puffing schedule for some of us. But if that's true, then within 6 weeks you get some pretty useful data.
Yeah.
But we don't know if it's true. But we can, as Olga was talking about, we can always check in and ask for data midway. Right. But you're right, there's not a lot of running room. If we're hoping to get this thing adopted and make decisions in March.
So back to your point about business risk, like we may or may not have sufficient data to make a decision at rulemaking time.
That is true. Yeah. I mean, we'll have these kind of 30-day check-ins, but yeah. Yeah, it's better than nothing. I mean, generally speaking, we don't have the ability to really kind of test out pilots, with rules as open.
I'm fine with doing a pilot. I just want it to be clear to folks who are listening that we may get data that is not helpful to this. Right. We may decide to pull it back. I just want that to be clear. Or we may decide in 3 months when our rules are nearly done that we don't have enough data and we're going to wait for our next iteration of our rules.
Yeah. And then my only other question about kind of having a set time limit is we're essentially, as far as I can tell, saying you can register a novel product that meets this criteria during this time frame, but you don't get 6 months from the date that it's approved or registered. You get to sell it during the 6 months, even if it gets registered the day before the 6 month expire, 6 month time frame expires. So it's just this is a 6 month kind of window, and it's not based upon the product registration date. It's based upon January 15th to June 15th.
Do we think this could then flood product registration? And I'm just worried about it creating some kind of delay for folks.
I've Googled vapes with removable batteries, and they're like, as far as there's not a ton of them. And I don't know how many, there's probably even fewer that are PLA. So I don't.
But each person that uses this for a product is going to have to register. It's not so much the number of products available, it's how many people decide to use these in their manufacturing.
Again, they all have to have a plan for how they're going to work through their recycling. So I think that may be a way for us to kind of have control over the numbers, because it's not as simple as any other product.
Okay.
All right. Well, so then do we want to vote to allow the staff to approve this waiver subject to some of the conditions that we've discussed today?
So moved.
Well, maybe not approve a specific waiver, but allow for the pilot program, because we probably want to make sure it's very clear what is the pilot program, because the waivers may need something additional to comply with the pilot program.
So then I'd retract that and say I'd move to direct staff to move forward with developing a pilot program as discussed by the board in this meeting? Does that,
Sure, you could additionally authorize the committee to approve waivers that comply with the, accepted parameters of the pilot program. That would prevent us having to bring them back to you to
Okay,
grant.
yeah. And yes. Say it again.
Okay, so to clarify, the motion on the table would be to authorize, the board would authorize staff to develop a take back pilot program for these PLA and battery removable devices, and further to authorize staff to grant waivers to manufacturers with plans that comply with the accepted guidelines of the plan.
So then I'm amending my motion to approve staff to approve waivers that comply with the guidelines of the program.
Yes, I think your intent is close enough. It's pretty clear.
I second.
I'm still thinking about the program as I'm talking, so it's
Yeah.
very difficult.
I second that. And any discussion about it?
No,
What's on the
I'm good,
table?
thank you.
No? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Great. Thanks for walking us through that, Kate. And before we adjourn, I'll just mention that the Social Equity Working Group is meeting at 3:00 today. The link to join that is on our calendar. And with that, I will adjourn the meeting.